Hi, how are you? I'm the Phantom of the Ore. This is my Building Real Houses in Minecraft series where I take a picture off Google and I rebuild it in Minecraft. And today we're going to be building this house. Isn't that right, random chicken? So today's house is a Victorian house called a Painted Lady. It's a house that was repainted, I believe, in either the 60s or the 70s in order to enhance it, give it a fresh look. But underneath it is a very old Victorian house, architecturally. I like Victorian houses, and you already saw me build one when you saw me build the Full House, which is that style. Now you'll look at this one and realize that it actually looks pretty similar, but what I'm interested in is the little circular shape right above the porch, because I don't think that's going to be easy to make, and I'm interested to see how I can recreate that. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not happy with the result, but one of the reasons for why I wanted to do this series is to learn how to do stuff like that. So mistakes are going to be made, and I learned a lot from this one. So for this build, I wanted to use cyan concrete blocks. Normally, I don't like concrete because it's too solid of a color and it doesn't look good, but I have an idea for the texture that I'm going to implement later, so just hang on a second because it's going to look a little too solid for most of this video, but you'll see how I break it up later. Just like what I did with the Full House, I used quartz blocks of varying types around the windows in order to get that trim right, and because this house has iron bars over its windows, I also put iron bars over my windows. However, Minecraft iron bars don't look as nice and neat as real life iron bars, so I ended up having to break it up a little bit in the end, just so that it doesn't end up looking too busy. I used black wool behind the windows to help give the windows more of a depth, and I used white glass because the windows in the picture seem to be bright, and because we don't have access to blinds or curtains in Minecraft, the white glass at least gives it that feeling of this is a nice and bright area. And today I'm building with an audience because, as you can see, I have a traveling villager checking me out. Maybe he'd like to purchase some real estate from me? Dude, real estate in Minecraft would be so cool. Imagine if you could build a house for villagers and traveling villagers and have them pay you rent to stay in the house. Would that be complicating the game too much? Oh, I have so many ideas now. Of course, I'm going to use end rods as I do with all Victorian builds, and I decided to go with oak fences for part of the decoration because I think there's too much white in this build. Like, even in the real life picture, I'm not a fan of how much white there is. And that's one of the things I don't like about Painted Lady type Victorian houses, because whoever decides to paint them often doesn't have the most balanced way of doing it. We have a lot of those where I live, and some of them just look straight up atrocious. I think it needs more variety of colors. The really little details in the decoration were the hardest part by far on this house, other than the semicircular archway. I wanted to use leads in the decoration, but leads have to be attached to something that's alive, so I put chickens inside the building, and I covered them up with trapdoors, and I used that to connect the lead to a center fence post. I once saw somebody do this with pigs for a rope bridge, and I was like, wow, what an excellent idea. However, what I don't like is that the chickens move, and it's not that visually appealing when that happens. Also, you can see the chickens through the trapdoor, so I had to build out the trapdoors a little bit more in order to fully cover the chickens and not break the illusion. And I used spruce wood for that because I think they're the best looking trapdoors, and of course they're the solid ones, and they go good with the color scheme anyway. I would have preferred a lighter color, but the birch trapdoors just would not have looked right there. Doing these diagonal windows is always really hard because you have to count it just right if you want it to look good, and I don't know why, but every time I have to count something, I get this giant brain fart, and it takes me forever to figure out where I went wrong when it ends up not looking symmetrical. I truly admire people that are good with numbers and good with counting. It takes me a really long time. Okay, now for this circular part. Honestly, what I should have done is I should have started with this part, but because it's elevated off the ground, I didn't want to miscalculate how high up I needed to go, and that's why I started with the other section of the house. But I really should have started with the circular section, because at the end of the day, I don't think I got the curvature just right. And I've since learned that there is an easier way of making circular objects in Minecraft, but I'll talk about that in another video, because I'm excited to implement what I've learned. I'm thinking that I'm going to build a giant penny, maybe in creative first and then in survival. Just you wait, I'll explain everything later. I made the stairs out of solid concrete at first, but then I thought it definitely needs more variety of colors, so I went in and replaced the center parts with andesite, and I think that ended up looking way better. It gave it a much better texture, but I did keep the concrete on the outside. As for the pillars on the sides, I again wanted to do something with leads, so I had to get creative with where I put the chickens again. And at the end of the day, it really wasn't working out. I just couldn't get it to look right, so I ended up going with a different plan entirely. So maybe in another build, I'll figure out how to make a nice handrail with rope, because I'm disappointed that I wasn't able to make that work. And then unfortunately, at the end of the day, I just don't think I made that second story window tall enough to really get a good curvature going with the archway at the front of the house. I tried my best to get it to look decent. And I used glowing item frames at the top for the decoration. I don't think I used glowing item frames enough, so I have to remember they exist so I can use them. Birch buttons lined the top, along with crimson wood signs. Again, it's all the little detailings of the Victorian house that is the hardest to do in Minecraft. And then the entryway. As you know by now, if you've been watching this series, the entryway is always one of the areas where I have to get the most creative. But again, I stuck with the theme of using glowing item frames and warped wood. After that, the third story was pretty easy to put together. With the diagonal windows, I just had to repeat what I had built in the 2 stories below it, and instead of a doorway here, I just put another window with some buttons for decoration. I continued the theme of using quartz, glowing item frames, warped wood signs, and end rods for all the decorations near the top, and then the rest was just a matter of filling in the roof and doing all of the little details there. I used diorite for that one peak at the top of the roof, some glowstone to complement the glowing item frames, just so that I wasn't using too much of the same texture. This part of the roof was a little hard for me to get right. I don't know why I couldn't get it. It wasn't coming out the right size at first, so I had to rebuild it a few times. More chickens with leads. I basically just did it the same exact way I did it below. Then there was just the matter of filling in the back half of the house, which is rectangular, so really not a big deal. Just kind of tedious, especially because the house is so tall. And this is usually the part where I say if this video gets 10 likes, I will eventually do the interior of the house as well as the yard, because this is just more of a quick build, but I would always love to come back and do more of a detailed build for any of these houses. It's just a matter of whether you want to see that or not. And that's why I say I want the likes. Just that's your way of telling me that you want to see it. I made the roof out of quartz this time, even though I think the roof is actually supposed to be dark in the real picture, but I wanted a light colored roof. And then I went in with blue wool, blue concrete powder, and random stone bricks every now and then to give the house more of a texture, so that it's not just a solid block of color. For some reason, my computer didn't record me adding the texture all the way around the house, but you get the gist. You see what I did, and I just did that alongside all the walls. You can see in the picture, there are lions on top of the columns in the front here. Now, unfortunately, I cannot build tiny lions here, but I can put cats on the columns, so hopefully I can make that work, because at the time that I'm recording this part of the voiceover, I have not done it yet, so watch and see what I do here. Okay, now the house should be done. So would you build this in survival or creative? I think this one will be a little bit more complicated to build in survival, not because the materials are so hard to come by necessarily, but just because it is a big house, and getting complicated with things requires a lot more planning in survival than it does in creative, because it's a lot harder to undo things. But after building my second Victorian house, I kind of really want to build one in survival at some point. I mean, really, I have so many ideas. I'm never gonna run out of things to do. I should really start writing these down before I forget them. Remember, 10 likes and I'll do the interior of the house as well as the yard. I make videos like these every Sunday, so subscribe if you like to watch chill videos of me building houses off Google. But I also make other videos such as Minecraft Let's Plays. I always like to have my take on the annual Minecraft mob vote. I'm not a commentary channel, but I do occasionally do commentary when it's Minecraft related. I also play other video games. Right now I started playing Hollow Knight and I'm making Let's Plays of that, but I have a lot more games on the way as well. I just haven't finished editing those videos. This is mainly a Minecraft channel though. I just like to play other games too. Follow me on Twitter and Tumblr if that's your thing. If for some reason you don't see me uploading or you're wondering what I'm up to, you'll always get an update in those places. If you're watching this while eating lunch, I want to know what you ate for lunch. Was it good? Did you like it? If you're watching these while pooping, I want to know. How's it going, huh? Is it all coming out okay? Is that a weird question to ask? I just hope you're feeling well and enjoying your life. And I'll see you next time. Have a lovely day.